Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you are all doing well. So today we're going to be going through our first tutorial, which is in applied econometrics. In this exercise, we're going to be fitting a demand equations for consumer goods using annual US time series data and test some of the hypotheses generated by the economic theory of the consumer. The equations we fit have the log linear form, so it's going to be log xt, where xt is a real expenditure on the good. Beta node is just the the parameter or the coefficient. Beta p is going to be a coefficient, and it's going to be the coefficient of log pt, where pt is a price index of the good. Beta q is going to be the coefficient of the price index of the other goods. Beta y is going to be the coefficient of the log yt, which is a log of the consumer real income. And ut here is going to be only the error term, or what is known as a disturbance. Okay, so the data that we're going to be using is we need to copy the file TSM from our web page, which is easy, which I think everybody could go ahead and do that. And then we have the data for this exercise is made up by Dr. Christopher from London School of Economics, and his book is going to be known as Introduction to Economics, which is one of our textbooks that we are using in this module. The data file is known as the new demand.x. So continuing from there, let's talk about the new demand function. The new demand function is the new demand.xls, which is Excel file, the spreadsheet, is given by this file. So you can see that you have data from 1965 until the very end, which is till year 2003. So don't worry about this, just I'm showing you here the data, how it looks like. Okay, we're gonna import this to TSM, but going from there, this file contains annual observation from period 1959 till 2003. On US real aggregate expenditures and the prices of the selected range of commodity. Table 1 below lists the variable names. So if you go to this table, you'll see that these are the variables. So this food represents the food purchase for off-premises consumption. Clothed stands for clothes and shoes. So basically those things that you see over here, each one of them represents something, and this is what it really represents. And this is going to be the price index of this. So I'm going to be somehow recapping what your lecturer Namyoon have spoken about. So if you still remember from the previous lectures, I think lecture 6, the last lecture of Professor Dr. Namyoon, she mentioned that that we have some kind of price index. But however, I would like to dwell a bit more deeper into this, just to refresh your memory and tell you how things are related to one. Let me just first of all continue reading this thing, and then we're gonna go into understanding more the details and the technicalities. So before reading this paragraph, I would rather read this paragraph first. Taking food. So food is one of the things that we are going to be accounting in our basket of goods. Food, for example, prices will be measured for all the many different subcategories, varieties like bread, meat, vegetables, and etc., and used to create series of real expenditure for each. Adding these together produces what is known as a food series. Okay, so just let me dwell into this in a bit more details and technicalities. So I'm gonna use this scratch paper, and let's say we have food. Okay, so food is this is food, and we know that food is somehow has a lot of categories. So let's say one of them is bread. Okay, the other category would be soup. For bread and soup, I don't know if you can change colors here. So for bread and soup, we know that each and every one of us consume different quantities of that, right? So let's say the food would represent a certain commodity I, okay? And basically the quantity that is gonna be for bread is gonna be VIT, which is the quantity that is consumed for bread in year T for commodity I, and this would be only a sub-commodity, which is sub-commodity number 1. And the other thing is that we have soup, which is going to be the VIT, which represent the commodity I, which is in our case it's food, and T is a part of the year, which is time T, and this is subcategory number 2 of food, right? So we're going to be going into those details. When we say that, let's say that we want to talk about the prices. So the observed prices in the market, this is P, the big P. P of commodity I in year time T for subcategories J, okay? In this case, what we say is the following, okay? So I'm gonna take this color, black, and what I'm gonna say the following. So basically this price for bread is gonna be given as follow, which is price P, big P, PIT, which is P of the food commodity, at year time T for subcategory number 1, and this is gonna be for subcategory number 2. The same thing applies, PIT, and this is gonna be 2. So as you can see here, for bread we have certain amount of times we have used the bread, and this is sometimes the prices of bread. If I told you what is the expenditure in year T for commodity I, basically we're gonna represent this as big XI T, and this is going to be equal to what? It's going to be equal to the price PIT 1 times the quantity that has been consumed. It's going to be VIT1 plus the price of soup, for example in our case PIT 2 times the quantity that has been used for soup. It's going to be VIT 2. So this would represent the what is known as the money or nominal or actual expenditure of commodity I, which in our case it's going to be food. Okay, so this is big XIT. Okay, it's going to be represented as big XIT. Okay, is this we're gonna go into, if you have any questions, please, ask me any question that you have in mind. The other thing we want to say about this is the following. Now that we have known what is XIT, the big XIT, which is the actual or the money expenditure at year T, I want to ask you, what is the representative price of food? Now you see that we have a lot of prices. So in this case, although I'm somehow simplifying food, but food could be way much more than bread and soup, right? It contain vegetables, oils, etc., right? So if I want to take a certain representative of a price of food, which I'm going to be calling it the PI, the big PI, at time T, obviously, because this big PIT, it does change with time. Basically, what we want to do is we want to find this representative price. To find this representative price, we know that it's going to be the sum of all the expenditures, which is, it's going to be big XIT, divided by the sum of all the quantities that has been consumed. So it's going to be VIT1 plus VIT2. In this case, this would be the representative price of food, right? Of this guy, food. So speaking about this, having spoken about this, let's go back to the lecture slides and understand what these mean. Okay, so I'm gonna erase this now. And now we want to talk about what this really means. So if we want to look at the data set, in the data set we have the year, right, which starts from 1959, if I'm not mistaken, and then it goes up till 2000, 2001, and then we speak about 2002 and so on. And 2003 it's going to be our last year of the data set. And then we say we have a subcategory which is known as food. And we have, what we want to have is basically we have the prices PI 1995, remember it's PIT, so 1959, and then it goes all the way up till PI 2000, and then we have PI 2001, and so on. Okay? And what we want to do is we want to find the price index of food for each and every year. Okay, so here we need to go back to the to speak about the lectures. So the price index is basically we need to find a certain base year, right? So base year. So we need to find a certain base year, and we're going to call it PI0. Obviously, this will change from from one data set to another, but in our case, our base year is going to be 2000, and this is based on the question. If you continue reading the question, they say that P-food is calculated by the ratio of actual real expenditure. So we want to understand what do you mean by actual, or what do you mean by real expenditure, times 100 to express as a percentages. Okay. This is why all the prices equal 100 in the year 2000. Okay, so if you look at the data set and we go down, we see that in year 2000, okay, I'm talking about the P-food, not those kind of things, so it's going to be somewhere here, yeah? So it's going to be this data set. We will see that all of them are equal to 100. But where does this number comes from? Okay, so this stands for P. You see, when we have P just next to the variable, this represents the P-food, or what is known as the ratio of actual to real expenditure. Now, speaking about this, we have to go into knowing what do we mean by, what do we mean by. So let's remember that the price index, small p, PIT, is equal to 100 times PIT divided by PI0. So if we go back to our sketchbook or sketchpad, what we're gonna talk about is we want to find the price index of food for each and every year, because for each and every year it does changes. In this case, we really need to select a particular base year. So in our case, base year is gonna be this value. This will be our base year, which is year 2000, PI 2000, and this will be our price index. So price index of food. Okay, this will be our price index of food. The price index of food for each and every year is going to be equal to this value divided by this value, right? So the price index is going to be given as PI 1959 divided by P of I in year 2000, because this is going to be our base year, times 100. So this will be our P price index of food, or what we're going to call it as P food. Okay, so simply P food. Then if I have a eraser here, okay, so we're going to call it P food. Okay, we're going to do the same thing for each and every point in time. And when we reach 2000, what do you think? It's going to be PI in year 2000 divided by PI in year 2000 times 100, right? So obviously this with this cancel out, and this becomes equal to 1. So 1 times 100 is going to be equal to 100, right? And that's why if you look at the data for each of all these commodity, which is here is P food, you will see that in year 2000 the thing was about, if I'm going to hide these cells just to show you. So let's say I want to hide this. So we're going to hide this, and we're going to hide the other thing over here, which is, where's P food here? Yeah, we're going to hide everything over here just to show you. Hide this. And as you can see that P food and everything that has P in it, because P stands for price index of this commodity. Okay, for example, FURN here, the thing that you can see over here, FURN stands for the following, right? If you look at the data set,